Welcome to the Get Inspired with Gerd show, brought to you by Gerd's Handel. Join us each week to be inspired, informed and uplifted with some of the most inspirational and motivational guests from around the world. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay inspired.
Hello and welcome to Get Inspired with Gerds. I'm your host and today I have an inspirational guest with me on the show who's challenging the norms of society with his inner words of wisdom. Kanwa Singh, aka Humble the Poet, is a talented poet from Canada, and he's better known for his poetry, also his rap, and also his YouTube videos with Superwoman. And his poetry is very focused on kind of taboo subjects within society, so from self-worth to understanding of self to kind of leading a better life and just not being afraid to be who you are and just being yourself and ignoring what other people have to say about yourself. And I had the opportunity of meeting Humble the Poet at his dear friend Inquisitive's exhibition in central London in December, and just we had this massive conversation about life and understanding, and he absolutely blew my mind, and I can't wait for you guys to hear the interview. Humble, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on my radio show, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, bless you. It's absolutely amazing to actually meet you in person. Sometimes your words, when I'm reading them, it's like it's talking to me, and it's just weird. Like I go into my little zone, I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what you're on about. And so, my dear, you've got a very unique style of poetry. How old were you when you first kind of discovered your passion for words?
Spoken word poetry. I don't know how old I was, but I was in university. I had attended an event. I went to a concert, and the opening act for the concert was a spoken word poet. And the only line I remember, he said something about like a relationship, and he's like a fine wine, we get better with time. And I was like, ooh, that's a good line. And then, just kind of being like, I liked what he was doing, and I'd always been writing. I'd been like writing stories since I was a child. Being a creative writer, I always loved it, but I never, nobody ever tells you that that's a possibility to be one. So.
Would you say that's just within our community, or is that just in general?
Well, I mean, yeah, I wasn't thinking, even when I was a child, like writing stories, I wasn't thinking about it. I was still thinking about being a fireman or being something else. When you're younger, when you're in high school, I wasn't thinking about it as much. And in university time, I started getting back into it a little bit more. And so I kind of got into spoken word that way. That's what kind of propelled me to try it out. And then we have a pretty vibrant scene in Toronto, and I went to like the amateur nights. And, took up my little poetry book as things that I kind of wrote and let it, the rest is history, I guess.
What kind of response did you receive when you kind of did your first ever?
Well, I felt like I took my first dip into it dramatically late. Like, maybe 5 years after I wrote my first poem, I actually performed my first poem.
Wow.
So I went to this amateur contest in a coffee shop, and I made it to the finals. I lost in the finals. But I made it to the finals, which was impressive.
Wow.
And then I started doing amateur nights. And then I guess I was doing, and there was professionals on there. There were people, who had names at that point. So I would do the amateur nights, and I joined a couple other competitions. And I wasn't doing well at all in any of the competitions. And then just having that evolve. And then one day I started writing with music in the background. And then naturally my rhyme started going on to the music, which is pretty much rap.
Wow.
And pretty much the rest is history from there.
Wow. So what was the next step after that? You've gone out there.
I started making music, started putting out my music on YouTube. Was just no videos, just putting out text videos with my lyrics on them. And on a local level, things were going well.
Wow.
I was working as a teacher. I had a little local celebrity status back then. And
what kind of teacher was it?
I was an elementary school teacher. I used to teach grade 3 to 3rd grade. Yeah.
Did you ever kind of speak any lyrics in front of them, or?
Well, they started again. It was when I started, like maybe within the first, probably 3 years of me doing it. Like people in school had picking up on me doing it, so the kids knew. Everyone knew, like, oh, Mr. Singh goes downtown and he reads poems and he raps and stuff. So they already knew. So I might have done like a lesson here or there, but I wouldn't like create a whole lesson to teach them math. I didn't have the patience and energy to do that. So this was really a creative outlet for me on the side. I used to read to them a lot, not my own stuff, just my own favorite children's authors. I used to read to them a lot, and I loved it. And that helped me develop an appreciation for children's authors, because it's much more difficult to use the small words to say the heavy things. And, authors like Dr. Seuss, he's talking about very deep concepts, using very light language and using very simple to understand metaphors. And as an adult, if you read them, you're like, oh my God, like this is a lot heavier than I thought. So I gained a real appreciation from that. So I loved story time with the kids and being very animated when I read to them and doing all that type of stuff, yeah.
Don't mind me asking, what's your favourite story growing up or your favourite book?
There's a book called Sideways Stories from Wayside School.
Okay.
It's an author named Louis Sachar. He's also famous he wrote a book and they made a movie of it called Holes. Shia LaBeouf, when he was a kid, he starred in that movie. And Louis Sachar wrote Sideways at Wayside School, and it's a really cool story about they built a school with 30 classrooms, but they didn't read the blueprint properly, so they built each classroom on top of each other. So the school was 30 floors.
What?
Yeah. So it's about this really wonky school, and it's about 30 floors, and it's centered around the classroom on top, which was Mrs. Jewell's class. So every kid in the class was a character in themselves, and just the wonkiest stories. And it was just, it was read to me when I was a kid. I remember my teacher reading it to me when I was 8. And then, fast forward, and I'm like 28, and I'm reading it to these kids, and it still connects. You know what I mean? Like, it was just so universal, and I loved it. You know what I mean? Like, the kids loved me. And every chapter was like 3 pages, so I could read a chapter every day to the kids. They loved it. They loved it so much. So that really motivated me to kind of get into writing. And from music, I was doing music, but I wasn't doing it at the level I wanted to do it and at the speed I wanted to do it. And I started blogging on my Facebook page. And then people were like, you should write a book. So I started collecting my writings, and I published my first book last March called Unlearn.
It's absolutely amazing. I've read it as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and so that was a natural progression from that. And then from that, I started writing more, and I just finished my second book, Beneath the Surface.
I'll be honest with you. I've been writing quotes for 5 years of my life when I was going on my journey. You actually inspired me to get it out there. I was scared to put it out there because I was like, how are people going to perceive it? And this year I was like, screw it. I'm just going to put it out. So thank you for that, for just giving me that.
Hey, you did it by yourself. I didn't do anything. I just reminded you that you need to do it.
Exactly, but you still made me realise that it was worth putting out there. I just didn't know how people were reacting to it because personally I was putting quotes out on Facebook throughout my whole journey. Yeah. But I was getting different reactions. You know what it's like. Sometimes people are like, yeah, some people are like, oh, what the hell is that? So I was like, should I really put it out? Should I not? So you kind of were part of my journey.
Okay,
that's probably the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
So, my dear, you started on the journey, following what you wanted to do. Who inspired you when you started out with poetry? Who are your biggest inspirations?
A lot of, I was listening to a lot of hip-hop. I grew up on Lauryn Hill, Outkast, a lot of rappers. I was very heavy into like substance-based artists who had a message back then, just based off the morals I had back then, being a kid, being idealistic. I love various authors, as I said, Louis Sachar, Dr. Seuss, and just anybody that was stimulating to me. And that's kind of what I was trying to be. I pretty much had decided that, they had an impact on me. I wanted to have an impact moving forward. Also, I kind of felt that hip-hop specifically wasn't given the respect it deserved. I felt that, your average rapper should be held in a higher prestige than Shakespeare. They've accomplished in literary arts far more than he ever had. He was one of the, he's a game changer. First off, there's no proof that he actually existed, number one. But number two, I get his appeal. I get how he taught us a lot of literary devices. If you don't have the right teacher to teach you Shakespeare properly, you're not going to appreciate it. I was fortunate; I had a couple good teachers that made me appreciate it. Didn't feel like homework. I think every lesson that a high school kid needs to learn about language, they could learn it much more excitingly from hip hop. They're much better writers. You have guys like Jay-Z, Biggie, Lil Wayne. They've never put a pen to paper. Everything they've ever presented was written in their heads and recited from their heads. Like, that talent in itself is just beyond me. I tried that once. It took me 7 days to write 16 lines in my head. And these guys do it on a regular basis. You know what I mean? With various chemicals inside of them. You know what I mean? So it's just inspiring. And it's like, you take your favorite Radiohead song, and it's 10 lines, 12 lines. You take your favorite hip hop song, it's like 3 verses of 16. It's amazing what you guys have done. It's I think a lot of people don't recognize the evolution of art in general, and hip hop, rapping specifically, is the evolution of literary art. You know, we wouldn't have rap without Shakespeare, but literary art has to evolve, and you have to acknowledge that by giving credit to what rappers do.
What I've noticed as well with hip hop and rap as well, all the characters have gone through something, and like you said, it is expressing, it's freestyling, isn't it? It's expressing it through their words. And you're right, when I've looked up in a lot of different people, like Jay-Z, for example, the way he talks about life and in general, he's very inspired, but it's from within. Yeah. It's not him talking, it's almost like he's a vessel.
Well, and that's what it is. It was a voice for the voice. Like the first song I ever released was called Voice for the Voiceless, and it was inspired by that concept that hip hop was, you know, you're coming from a community that don't have any resources, they don't have access to education. If you don't have access to education, then you can't effectively communicate your emotions and your feelings. Yeah. If you can't effectively communicate your emotions and your feelings, then you're gonna lash out to vent, and that's where a lot of violence comes from. It's a breakdown in communication. Arguments start because communication breaks down. And if you don't have the necessary education to communicate or the skills, you can't do it. So hip hop was that venting. They found a way to vent out their frustrations and talk about their conditions, you know, in the early days without having to resort to violence. And they were painting a picture with words. And they were doing it on behalf of everybody who did not know how to do that. It was such an important thing to exist. It's the perfect example of how a lack of resources encourages an abundance of creativity. You know, they didn't have instruments, they didn't know how to play instruments, they started sampling their parents' records. You know, they didn't have a lot of space to dance, they started breakdancing, where it's one person dancing at a time. It's such a beautiful, natural occurrence that happened. You know, the first time DJ Kool Herc, all he was doing was, you know, he's throwing a party in the basement of his apartment and the record is spinning, and all he's doing is because he wants to keep people dancing, he keeps bringing the record back. And that's where scratching came from.
Oh my God, really?
You know, yeah. Like, this was so natural and so new, and he would be like, come on, people, put your hands up, put your hands. That's where rapping started.
Oh my God.
He's still alive. The guy who invented rap is still alive. Like,
that's insane.
You know what I mean? And it's such a beautiful, natural occurrence. And, you know, I want to be that culture changed my life, and I want to be, you know, I have the necessary resources, education, life experiences to contribute, and I want people, that's why I call myself Humble the Poet, not Humble the Rapper. I want people to realize that we will do this on that level, and it will get the recognition it eventually deserves. You know, instead of just, right now it's currently viewed as pop culture, but eventually it's going to be viewed as high art.
I think it's changing. It is changing, but it's changing very slowly.
It's changing, but at the same time, it's because people on the outside don't understand the culture as well, that they judge it superficially. You know, they'll be like, oh, these people are all about the money. These people are all about the women. They're all about what have you. And again, I don't blame anybody for not understanding it, but once you get into it, you kind of understand. Like, these are people expressing their dreams. These are people, you know, it's not, and a lot of people, like, you know, you can recognize Jay-Z as a vessel. He is speaking for people. But a lot of people think he's speaking to people.
It's like Kanye West as well. A lot of people get Kanye West wrong.
They get him wrong, right? But in 100 years, they won't. He'll, you know, and he understands that. He understands that. That's why he called himself Walt Disney. He knows. And in the world we live in, if you don't have that level of self-determination and belief, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
You have to think you're the best. You have to think there's nothing better than you for you to just survive in this world. Yeah. So, I mean, I just want to be a part of that and contribute, and kind of, I feel like I'm in debt to it. I want it to pay back. So it's not more so, you know, because again, I when you produce art and you put work out, you're only half the interaction. I put out a piece of work, I'm 50%, you're the other 50%. How you choose to take it is really none of my business or even my concern. So I can't do it for the accolades. I can't do it for any of that. Obviously, you know, the more people that like my stuff, the easier it is for me to support myself to make more stuff. So obviously I have a stake in that outcome. But my goal is to just, I feel like I've taken so much out of that pot to feed my soul. Now I'm in a position where I want to fill that pot up again and let people do what they want. If whether I inspire the next great artist or whether I am the next great artist, that's will happen when it happens.
Wow. Taking me to another level. So, you know, you recently went on a tour Can you tell me more about that? What was kind of your experiences on that tour? Did you learn a lot about yourself?
Yeah, I went on tour with Lily Singh, also known as Superwoman. She had a tour called A Trip to Unicorn Island, which is AT2UI for short. And I've done music with her, so she had a music segment in the show. So I was part of that music segment. So she gave me 2 jobs. My job was number one, I was part of the climax of the show, the high energy element of the show. And behind the scenes, my job was to be the calming energy, the guy that could keep everybody, it's a very stressful situation doing that. And I have, according to her, the calming energy around, right? So those are my 2 jobs. Keep everybody cool behind the stage and keep things hyper on stage. And it was very good. It was a very interesting situation, traveling the world with making brand new friends with a lot of the dancers and other, the tech people, the stage manager, all of that. You learn a lot about yourself. I learned how much sleep I can actually survive off of. I learned, reaffirmed the importance of travel, how so important it is to travel in this world to get the necessary education to be a complete human being. Seeing showbiz, how it works behind the scenes, how everything, getting a taste of that. Before that, I was doing shows for max 200-300 people, max I've ever done in a room.
Oh, wow.
And this is like 15 to 2,500. We did Trinidad for 5,000 people.
Oh my God.
So getting a chance to have, and with that, just some simple things, better equipment, having an earpiece in, having somebody dedicated to making me make sure my volume was on point. Small things like that, working with lighting, working with stages. These are things I had never done. I'd always just done small clubs. So just getting a taste of that, kind of getting to see what I want for my future. Because I don't have the necessary reach to do a world tour myself with those numbers, but she does. And so she brought me as a part of it so I can see what I want, what I can aim for and I can work for.
Wow. What was your favourite part out of everything on the tour? Or what's the most memorable moment for yourself personally?
Most memorable moment on the tour?
Probably lots, I'm guessing.
It was an interesting thing. I mean, I'm just trying to think what the most memorable.
Was it in front of the scenes or was it behind the scenes? Or?
I mean, like, at one point we were like going so crazy in Chicago that the sound system blew out.
What?
Like everything blew out.
No.
Yeah, so like the sound died.
Oh my God.
But we didn't miss a step. We just kept going, just screaming at the top of our lungs.
Oh my God! Halfway through the event.
Yeah, so I'm on stage, I'm performing, and we're rapping, and and I'm all into it. Energy's high, and all of a sudden, music stops, mics die, everything. But we just made it seem like we did it on purpose, and we just started screaming to the crowd, "How y'all feeling? Everybody make some noise!" We just kept doing until they fixed it, and that was crazy. I mean, performing in Toronto, because Toronto was the middle of the tour. Toronto was.
Oh wow.
Because we started international, then we came back to North America.
Okay.
So our first North American show was Toronto, and then we went on the North American tour. So performing in Toronto was just wonderful because I don't perform at home a lot, but as well as
Why is that? If you don't mind me asking. Think they're not ready for you?
It's not about not being ready. I think it's when you're local, you're just a local act. You don't really do it as much. It's
I mean, they're not ready for you.
I don't want to say they're not ready, but I mean, it feels good to perform at home though. Especially a lot of my work is very Toronto centric. I make a lot of Toronto references. I do a lot of that, and I mean, like even Drake does it too. Like the average person in the UK will hear him, but they won't know the small references that he makes to the city, and he does it a lot. And it feels good. So even being in a Toronto club hearing Drake music just feels it makes everything feel like you're at home. It's this feeling of being home. It's like being at a family wedding. You know what I mean? So doing the music performances, we have a song called IVIVI, which is the Roman numerals 416, which is our area code. So this whole song is about.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the whole song is about Toronto, and it was a promo for the world tour. But the whole song was about seeing the world in my city. So Singapore in my city. UK in my city. That's how we called it. But it was all about everything because we live in one of the most multicultural cities in the world, which is Toronto. And everywhere in the world, because like they're hardcore fans. They knew it was 416. It was about Toronto. They all knew it. But when we did it in Toronto, they felt it. They made us feel it. Like everybody was singing at the top of their lungs. It was a Toronto moment, and it had that. And I know a lot of people they weren't saying that was their favorite show, but I'm very big on the home crowd. It wasn't even the biggest show. It was one of the smallest shows actually, but it was just that energy, and it felt very vindicating. Like. Just to perform that and to see that, and I love that. I guess it was kind of like, you go to your favorite sports team, and if everybody's wearing a Manchester United jersey, everyone's cheering for that. That common energy that goes in, that's normally you're part of the audience. This is now they're doing it to me, and that was beautiful. That was a beautiful experience. But I mean, making friends with everybody on the tour was a big thing. It was. Like we have a film coming out about the tour at the end of January, and it's going to be on YouTube's new channel, YouTube Red, and you guys will get a chance to see it, and it's beautiful because we made a film / documentary about the entire thing, and we had no drama. It didn't depend on drama to exist, Nobody in the entire tour for 2.5 months got in an argument, nothing like that. We were very loving, supportive.
Family.
It became a family, and it was organically built, and I was shocked. I was like, you guys, because I was the last to join the tour.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't there for the casting. I wasn't there for picking the dancers. I wasn't even a part of the tour. So these people were all chosen.
Oh, wow.
And then Lily was like, hey, I want you to be a part of this.
Oh.
So me and her are good friends, but for her to successfully pick another 8 wonderful people based off a dance audition, I was like, wow, like these people are talented.
That's powerful.
And they're just sweethearts. They're wonderful to be around. So like late nights in the people's hotel rooms, playing games, having fun, and again, you get to travel the world with these people. It's just, we have non-stop memories everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was your favorite location out of all the tours?
Well, for me, the favorite location actually was London, Shepherd's Bush, because such a historic venue. So, like, the venue was just, creaky, old, semi-haunted. It just felt amazing. So, again, like, me having the least amount to do on the tour, I could spend so much time just soaking it in, walking around. So, while they're rehearsing, I'm sitting in every section of the venue. You know what I mean? I'm sitting in the balcony. I'm sitting in the front. I'm sitting in the side. I'm going through the secret exits. I'm climbing up ladders. I'm exploring. I have the opportunity to do all of that while they're all rehearsing. And Shepherd's Bush was just one of it's the venue. It's the venue everybody wants to play in. Like Charlie Chaplin played there. Amy Winehouse played there. You know what I mean? And to see all of that history, now to say I was a part of that, is just, Shepherd's Bush was hands down my favorite.
Would you say part of the tour was your inspiration for your second book?
Yeah, I wrote about the tour a lot in the second book. I definitely wrote about it. I was almost about to write a whole book about the tour. Definitely. It was it was almost a once in a lifetime experience. Like, I hope it's not a once in a lifetime experience for me. I want to go on more world tours, but I mean, it was something that I never imagined. You didn't know what you were signing up for. You know what I mean? It was very difficult physically, mentally. It was very demanding. Not every day was the most pleasant day.
How many hours were you roughly?
2 to 3 every day. 2 to 3 a day. The tour was organized very late, so because of that, there was no tour buses. Everything was planes. So what people don't realize is, because you're traveling to airports, that's an extra 3 hours every single time.
Yeah.
Checking in, checking out, whatever. So there's no buses until you get into a country. Right, so we took a bus from London to Birmingham to Manchester. But when we were in North America, it was a flight.
Oh my God!
Every single city. Yeah, so there wasn't a lot of sleep. If you finish at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock and you get out because there's like fans waiting for you, all that, you get up at 12:30. You try to find a place to eat. Something to eat. I was, eating out of vending machines. It's not as glamorous as it looks. Then the fans started gifting us stuff, so we started like putting it out there, like, hey, give us some instant cheese and macaroni.
Really?
Yeah, because then at least we had a microwave in the hotel. We can cook the food and eat it, right? It got to that point.
Wow.
Yeah, it got to that point. So this was a proper tour. It was a properly funded tour, but it's just like, if it's 12:30 and you're in a small city like Kansas, saying there's nothing open. There's nowhere to go for food.
You need your fans to help you.
Yeah, you need them to help. And they do. They're
They want to
wonderful.
see you.
They help, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, they were fun to be at the party. We partied in Hong Kong. We partied in Dubai. We had some crazy, we had some crazy experiences as well. It was, I got to see a lot of really cool things. It was really cool.
So, Mateo, what brings you to London?
I'm here for Inquisitive's first ever London exhibit in his 5-year celebration of him being the wonderful artist that he is.
Saw your picture of yourself on there as well. There was an art piece of yourself.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
There's a few up. There's a few. I think there's
Was there a
two.
few? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
there should be. I think so. What he posted up there was there's one of me, like there's 2 pictures of me looking at each other. Yeah. So what had happened was I had a flyer. I had a show in Vancouver. So this is when I was completely local. The first time I had ever gotten a show outside of the city was in Vancouver. We had made a flyer, put it out, and what he did was he took the flyer and he drew it. He redrew it. Like a fan, just drew. I didn't know who he was back then.
Wow.
And then he sent me this picture. He's like, "Hey, I drew this picture of you," and I was like, "Super cool." His style, I've never seen that before. I was like, "This is super dope," and I shared it on Facebook. This is before Instagram. I shared it on Facebook, shared it on whatever social media I was using back then, and stayed in contact. And then what he did was, I sent him a song, and what he did was he drew on his bedroom wall a picture of me. And he shot a video. We have a video. It's a video. It's called Cocaine Rock. That's the name of the beat. It's like a mixtape track. And we rapped over this beat called Cocaine Rock. So it's called Cocaine Rock. And he shot the whole video. He shot a video and he drew it all over his wall. So when I came for the first time to London, the first performance was in 2011, he was in the crowd. He said, "Hey, you remember me? Hey, remember we worked together on that video? I need you to come to my house and see the picture I drew on my wall before my mother kills me." Yeah, and I didn't go. This is the first time I've ever been to his house.
I don't blame you because you'd be like,
No, not even that. Like, we've been friends. I just never
right.
get it. He lives, all the way east. I just never get to go to his house. And he gifted me that picture, the one that's hanging up. He gifted me that. And the interesting thing is I never took it home. I left it at my mama's. Like, it was too big for a suitcase. So he gifted me the picture. But again, I took pictures of it. I posted it. And then, so what he says is, I don't agree, but he says is I helped get him exposure in North America, which helped him start his tours. Because this is the first time he did a show here. But he's been doing shows for the last couple of years in North America.
I think everybody serves a purpose in your life. And so you were there to help him to some degree.
No, and I'm sure his work would have made it out there anyways, right? Like, it's great enough. If I was one person to share it once, it's fine. So, and that's the reason I'm here. Because he's like, let's bring it back full circle. I started this with you. I want to celebrate my 5 years with you. Yeah, it was wonderful. So, he gifted me that. So that's the painting's gone up. And we've collaborated on a lot of stuff. He actually designed the first cover of my first book, but I didn't use it. It was a picture of, the book was originally going to be called Butterflies and Lions. And there's a picture of me, and he turned my face into, I have CDs actually. I'm using it for a CD. He turned my face into half butterfly, half lion.
Wow.
And it's beautiful, but but the first book isn't about me. So I didn't want my face to be on the cover. So, I used the light bulb and the leaf instead. But I made the conscious effort. This is beautiful, but I don't want to use it for that. So I'm actually going to eventually I'm going to release a poetry book, and I'm going to use that as a cover. And so he did that. And I actually tried to get him to be a part of the second cover, and I was with him at his exhibit in LA. But again, it was just hectic times, and I had a crazy deadline. So I actually hand drew it myself this time.
Wow.
The background images for my cover for this book. But we just have a wonderful history, and it's wonderful 5 years later that we're still good friends. But 5 years later is the first time I got to actually go to his house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, it's beautiful. So, Mateo, I know some of my listeners would love to hear you recite some lines. Would that be possible?
There's nothing that comes to my head right now.
Oh.
Yeah. But I mean...
Being shy?
No, definitely not shy. There's nothing that... Normally, again, spoken word, the whole thing with spoken word is you need to have... 90% of spoken word is how you deliver it. And you need that type of energy, you need to feel it. And
Okay.
This is more of a quiet, we got candles.
It is quite calming, isn't it?
Yeah,
This background.
It's
It's a chilled out thing.
Yeah, it's not a
Okay.
turn up type of vibe.
No, that's okay. So we are coming towards the end of the show. I wanted to ask you, what are your kind of 5 top tips for someone who's trying to express themselves through words, but they don't really know where to start?
Well, I think you got to ask, well, if the goal is to express yourself, then be open to more than one idea of how to express yourself. If you're trying to express yourself with words and you can't find the right words, then maybe words isn't the way you should express yourself. You know, maybe you can draw, maybe you can, cook, bake. You know, everything is an art. Everything. Do hair, put clothes together. You know, fashion designing is art. It's all art. Bringing new ideas to life is that. So with that said, I think if they're having trouble using words, maybe words that aren't for them. You know, for me, words come out. Like that's what I do. I can't draw. You know, I can draw. My life depended on it. Everybody, you know, I can't swim. There's a million things I can't do. You know, but I'm known for what I can do. So I think people need to figure out what they can do, focus on that, and elevate that by focusing on a consistent, regular basis. You can't be a writer if you don't write every day. And the biggest difference between an amateur and a professional in any field is the amateur waits till they're inspired. A professional is coincidentally inspired every single day. Right? You got to do it every day if you want to be a professional. And a lot of people don't realize that. They like the romantic idea of like, oh, I just woke up today, I'm inspired to write 4 lines and let's call it a day. Like, no, that's not how it works. That's not how Stephen King and all these, you know, highly successful authors are. They sit down every day, no matter what, and put, you know, pen to paper and bring their ideas to life.
Even like Steve Jobs, it would be him hidden, I don't know if you know, he was hidden in a room with no technology, and he used to just sit there and design every single day until the design needs to come to him.
And that's what you have to do. Like, and again, like that's the beautiful thing about Ink's exhibit. Like, he showed his entire evolution. Like, I remember when he first came out, you know, and it's like, okay, he took a painting that we've all recognized, the Guru Gobind Singh, and he just kind of flipped it, but it was still a painting that already existed. He just changed the colors, and it was like, you know, this isn't, you know. I heard, you know, people like, this isn't creative, this isn't original, but it's like, listen, he's starting. Let's see where he goes. And if you don't let him start, if you stop him, you know, and look where he's gone after 5 years. Like, the work has gone leaps and bounds. And that's what happens with any artist. If a guy starts rapping tomorrow, he'll probably sound like Drake. He's going to. Like, he's going to sound like his influences, but then he's going to find his voice eventually if he sticks with it long enough. A lot of people don't stick with it. I think the easiest way to be successful with this new short attention span generation that we're a part of is simply stick with it.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to do it, but not everybody wants to put in the work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you have already said, look, I'm going to put in the work every single day, no matter what, I can guarantee you success. I guarantee you. The consistency and the persistence, the work ethic will always trump your talent. You don't have to be talented.
It's true. It's not about talent. It's being, like you said, it's true. Yeah, it's getting your stuff out there no matter what, even if it's not perfect, because nothing will ever be perfect.
It's not supposed to be.
Because that's your beauty.
Yeah, you're a work of art. You're a continual work of art. And the only time you're going to be done is when you're dead. You know what I mean? Every day you're working. Every day you're chipping away at yourself. You are both. What's that quote I heard? You're both the sculptor and the rock. You know what I mean? You have to cause yourself the pain and discomfort to become who you are. You're chipping away at yourself. And you have to do that. You can't, if you're like, oh, I have to wait till this is perfect before I put it out, it's never going to be perfect. You're never going to put it out. You're never going to see any progress. Right? So that's all it is. And the earlier you start, you know, the more time you do. A lot of people will wait. They're just sitting on their hands, waiting to pull the trigger on their dreams. And then years go by. And then nothing happens. And then they wonder. And then to convince themselves, they'll be like, oh, well, so-and-so got lucky. Or so-and-so knew the right people. And you're like, no, they didn't. They did the work when you didn't. You know what I mean?
That word luck winds, I don't know about you, but it winds me up because nobody's lucky. It's down
well, that's
to
the whole
you.
thing. And I mean, and again, luck is, if anything, luck is when your preparation meets an opportunity. If an opportunity comes by you and you're ready for it, and then people consider that lucky, you know, if you have a chance meeting with somebody and you impress them because you were prepared. And again, with everybody I know who's successful, like, you know, for every image, if Amin had 600 images up at the exhibit, nobody was with him when he drew those. He did those all by himself. You know, he didn't just draw one and hope it changed his life. He kept going every single day. And same thing with Lily. She was releasing videos when nobody cared about her. You know what I mean? It was happening consistently every 2 days a week. And that's what this life is. It's putting yourself in a lonely dungeon and putting out the work and hoping you find satisfaction from completing the work. Nothing else. You can't find satisfaction by hoping people like it. It's not about them. It's about you completing it. And the victory for you is getting it done. Simply.
So, Maddie, we are at the end of the show. When is your book? You said the second book's being released.
It's out.
Oh, it's out. Okay.
It's out. So you can get it all on Amazon. So the first book is Unlearn, and the second book is called Unlearn Beneath the Surface. So it's pretty much, I don't want to say it's the second half of the first book. It's more so a continuation, but not. It doesn't take you. It's not a sequel. It's the same. It's taking you deeper into the ideas. So in the first book, I talk. You said you've read the book. I talk about a lot about ideas, but I don't talk a lot about myself. The second book is a lot about me and where those ideas come from. So a lot of people just assume that I was, they're like, oh, you're wise, you're smart, and I'm saying like, no, let me write about all the mistakes I made where I learned all this stuff. And then number one, you're going to realize how much of a typical dumbass I am. And number two, you're also going to realize that the only difference between me and maybe the average person is I gave myself extra time to look at things from a different perspective and learn that way. I didn't immediately judge what was happening to me. I took a step back, evaluated it, and that's it. But it's nothing. I don't feel like I'm saying anything revolutionary. I just feel like I'm reminding people of stuff they already knew.
And is there any events? You've been at Amandeep's event, Inquisitive's event.
Yeah.
Any other places that you're going to be out soon?
No, I'm actually hoping not to be part of any events for a while. I want to lock myself up in my dungeon and be very creative. I want to work on a lot more music now. Now that this book is out.
Going on a solo tour, I guess.
Huh?
Solo tour with yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to even go on tour. I actually just want to release a lot of music for a good solid year and see what happens after that. I just want to focus on that more so because it takes a lot. I mean, with Amin planning his exhibit, that takes time, and that takes time away from the art. I've been doing a lot of stuff myself, throwing my own events, being a part of other people's events. That takes away time from your own art. The logistics behind putting the book together took away time. Now that that's all done, I can just be an artist. So I've devoted 2016 to just being an artist.
Amazing. Where can my listeners find you? If there's anybody out there who hasn't heard of you yet, wants to know more, where can they find you, man?
Humble the Poet on any social media. It's the easiest. I have all the handles, so just @ Humble the Poet, or my website humblethepoet.com. Very simple.
Perfect. Well, it's been amazing having you on the show, and just thank you for just being yourself, because in this day and age, it's very hard to meet people who are very authentic and just being from a true place. So thank you for just
Thank
being
you for having me. I appreciate it.
Great interview, great person, great personality, and overall a great human being. Humble, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and just keep doing what you're doing because you're inspiring people without realising it. And even for myself, as I was saying before, you inspire me to just, even though they were my own words, but you inspire me to just take that action, because sometimes in life we can be a bit afraid to do things, and you've got this unique way of just reminding people that just go out there, don't be afraid, just whatever it is, just go and just embrace it and just enjoy the journey. And unfortunately, it's the end of the show, guys. Just before I head off, don't forget you can find me on Twitter at IamGurds, that's IamGurds. You can find me on Facebook at Get Inspired with Gurds, where I'll be bringing you lots of inspirational, motivational quotes, but also videos and lots of other packages to help you to transform your life and find your purpose. And also you can check out my book, which is on Amazon, which is Educo, which is EDUCO. And this week I want to leave you guys with this quote. Be yourself because everybody else is taken. You are your own light. You are this unique person for a reason. Just go out there and do what you need to do because you are perfect. Take care, guys, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Join us each week to be inspired, informed, and uplifted with some of the most inspirational and motivational guests from around the world. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay inspired.